It's a long report detailing how the life of an average pensioner is and what they go through. That is just one out of so many of them scattered across this country at whatever level. And this is part of what we'll be talking about right now. I have with me in the studio the author, Planning Your Retirement, Babatunde Raimi. Babatunde, good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you this morning.
Same here.
Now, when you saw that documentary by the BBC talking about the life of a pensioner, I wonder what goes through your mind. You have a book that is titled Planning Your Retirement. But how reflective is the situation now, you know, stemming from the fact that you have to write a book on this and all of that?
As a gap analyst, I saw all these things years back. That was why I wrote that book, Planning Your Retirement, you know, just to let people understand that any fate that puts your retirement life solely in the hand of an organization or government is an irresponsible fate. Because when I saw that interview, in my spirit, I cried. I interface with retirees every day. They ask series of questions. You see that they know almost nothing about retirement. And I was actually sad that this report had to come from British Broadcasting Corporation. What happened to our investigative journalists? You might not get millions of naira when you do things concerning retirees. You know, I feel that when you've served your nation meritoriously, especially for 35 years, most people with unblemished records of service, you know, you should get your pension as at when due. Not getting their pension as at when due is a sacrilege. It's a sacrilege and is an unpardonable sin. As I speak with you, I have retirees that I send money, you know, like it could be 5,000, 10,000. I have people who have attained the level of level 17, who cannot fend for themselves. They have become social misfits. They have become non-entities because the government failed them. And also because, to a large extent, they did not see the future by planning for themselves. So when I saw that, I cried in my heart. As I'm speaking with you, retirees are dying every day. They can't go to the hospital when they are healed. They can't. Some of them are healed. Some of Mike, it's a sad story.
It's really touching. Now the point is, this documentary by the BBC is just adding a voice to what has been done, because I recall that so many Nigerian journalists have done this reports about pensioners over and over and over again. But this also being the searchlight continually, and it has to remain on the front burner until government does something. But let's delve into that, planning your retirement from that perspective now. Let's talk about that before we come back to the plight of these people. Thank God you've interfaced with them, so you have an idea of what they go through that you want to share with us. But when it comes to planning your retirement, what are the things to consider in that plan?
You know, you first look at it from the employer's angle before you look at it from the employee's angle. When you work for an organization, you are entitled to some entitlements and gratuities, for which gratuity is a reward that they give to you. I thank you. It is not your pension. It's just to say we are grateful, you know, from the word gratitude. Then your pension is your right. So you realize that I have been saying it over and over and over again. It is a misnomer to start gathering retirees 2 or 3 years to retirement to say, okay, let's start teaching you about your retirement, what you can do. Retirement planning starts from your first day at work. Retirement lecture seminar should start. If I join an organization today, I should know that I'm retiring on the 20th of May, 20, maybe 40 something. And you should start telling me, okay, when you get to this phase, this is what you're supposed to be doing. When you get to this phase, this is what you're supposed to be doing. So that's a major part where the employees, including MDAs and SIPO, SIPO meaning Customs, Immigration, Police and Police, are missing it. Don't start telling me about retirement planning 1 year, 2 years to retire, when I can do almost nothing, when I've used most of my productive life to serve you in a customized life. Now, on the part of individuals, you realize that every year government subsidizes education, you know, in federal universities. And how many people studied English and are teaching English today? So most people, they find themselves, you know, maybe they have one uncle somewhere. I also saw a report somewhere where somebody said in America, when you look for a job, they'll ask you, what can you do? In Britain, they'll ask you, what qualification do you have? But in Nigeria, they'll ask you, who do you know? So most people got this job, okay, just start doing this one. Maybe later you get you now realize that they get so so engrossed in the job, they give it their everything without knowing that one day they will retire. But on what? Without realizing that retirement is a destination, is a journey, not a destination. You plan for a journey. If you are going on a journey, you begin to plan for it. That is where the place of planning your retirement comes in. Some people have also, when you have a child, you are duty bound to take care of your child. But I stand bold to say today that taking care of our children that God gave us is good, because if you don't, your friends will laugh at you. But it is not a dependable retirement plan. How many parents, from all the under 40s, under 50 watching me today, how many of you are sending money to your parents on a monthly basis as a retirement?
Good question, Mayor. Good question. And moreover, even those who are sending, the point there is sometimes what you send or what they send to their parents is just we are contributing, because it can't be adequate to take care of the parents sometimes for some of the people. So, but the issue there is, in government circles, we have seen cases where people are not paid for 6 months, 1 year, so many months, in fact 2 years, and all of that. People are owed from the reports we get and all of that. How will people in that sphere, how would they move forward and think in the line that you were talking about?
We need to understand, like when I watched the BBC interview, I realized they should have also mentioned that there are two sets of pensioners in Nigeria. You have those under the old scheme, which you call the defined benefit scheme. Those who retired before 2007, they are under the Pension Transition Arrangement Directorate. So that's an arm managing them. Then you have those from the Contributory Pension Scheme, 2004. They are under the Contributory Pension Scheme. So it means that if you did not retire before 2007, and you transited into a contributory pension scheme, by the time you retire, you'll be qualified for your benefits from your date of first appointment till, I think, June 2004, which the government kept with the central bank in a bond. And what you have contributed, plus the interest that has been generated. But when this scheme started, this contributory scheme started, retirees were getting their payments 1 month after retirement, 3 months after retirement, it cascaded into 6 months. And before we knew what was happening now, as I speak with you, I can almost predict their future to mathematical certainty, that people who retire from federal service, that is from MDAs, Ministry Department Agencies, and SIPO, Customs, Immigration, Police and Police, retirees from March 2020 till, as I speak with you now, have not received their pension benefits. That is not what it is supposed to be in a country that is so rich yet so poor.
What do you think is behind some of these lapses now, from your analysis, because you've done a great job of trying to look critically at this situation? What do you think is behind all of this?
Corruption. Corruption is the commander-in-chief of Africa's problem. Corruption because, let me first say that if I tell you that I'll be here by 8:20, and I come here by 8:21, I'm corrupt. Because what we call the African time is actually foolish man's time. Do you understand? Why I started by saying that, does it mean an average African have an atom of corruption in them? Having said this, there was a time I was on air here, I think we talked about government wanting to borrow money from the pension fund. It's not a bad thing. There are good debts, there are bad debts. It's not a bad thing to borrow money from, if you will use it for infrastructure development and things that will, bring about more return on investment for these people. But you realize that when they say they borrow money and you cannot track the money, I don't really know what ICPC or EFCC are doing. You cannot track the money. A government can borrow money, and before you know what is happening, you cannot trace the money again. So how will they be able to return that money as at when due to ensure that people that are supposed to be paid are paid? If you are under the contributory pension scheme, now when you retire, you'll be getting text messages, alerts from your pension fund administrator who are managing the fund for you every month to say your balance is now this, your balance is now this. Now, you'll just be seeing the balance, but you will not be able to assess your retirement until government pays their part. Their part is what we call a bond. And the bond, until they pay that bond into your retirement savings account, you cannot go and assess your benefit. So as I'm speaking with you now, for federal, people retired March to date, government have not paid their bond into their account. And from the beginning, it was not so. It is even good for federal. For states, sometimes they have to wait up to 3 years to assess their pension benefits. Sometimes 3 years. Why does it have to be like that for people who are, you know, some young people that might be listening to this now, they might say, retirement, you know, concern me. One day you will retire, either by retrenchment, resignation, or retirement. But on what? If we don't come together to arrest this menace now, when that time comes, it will be a big problem for us. So the first problem is corruption. The second problem is corruption. The third problem is corruption.
It's corruption all the way leading to that from what you're saying. That, looking at it from the perspective of, because you've given the government perspectives to that, when it comes to private sector, is it the same?
I will tell you, this is the Bible or Quran of the civil servants. You know, they say when you want to expose anything to an African, put it in entertainment. But if you want to hide anything from an African, put it in a book. Permit me to also borrow from textbook of spiritual science, which says that my people are destroyed. Hosea 4:6, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Having mentioned the private sector, let me take you to, this is the Pension Reform Act, which also has the civil service rule. I can almost tell you that 20% have not read the Pension Reform Act. They only read the civil service rule when they are going for promotional exams. So if you don't read this to understand your rights, your duties, and obligations, how are you sure that you retire with your full benefits? So for the purpose of specificity, let us look at section 11, section 11, subsection 6 of the Pension Reform Act 2014 as amended. It said an employee who fails to deduct or remit the contributions within the time stipulated in subsection 3B of this section shall, in addition to making the remittance already due, be liable to a penalty to be stipulated by the commission. Let me now, I read 6 before I will go to 3 so as to balance it. So if I now go to 3, say the employer shall A, deduct at source the monthly contribution of the employee, and B, not later than 7 working days from the day the employee is paid his salary, remit the amount comprising the employee's contribution under paragraph A of this subsection. So the question I want to ask is, how many employees, do they deduct the money? Yes. Yes. Because you will see it in your pay slip. How many, do you get text messages within, let's say, 14 days that the money is deducted? No. How many employers really deduct the money and remit as at when due? If they are not remitting as at when due, what type of checks and balances do the PFAs, that is the people that are liable to manage the fund, what are they doing to report to, okay, some we have not received, so if employers are not remitting, quote unquote, as at when due, how will these people assess, 1, their full benefits, 2, how will they have access to their pension benefits? So it's a big, you see, what we are talking about is just a fragment of the bigger problem in the pension industry in Nigeria.
Well, if they're not remitting the monies as at when due, when it comes to the issue of the specification, there is about 7 days from the day that the employee is paid. Could it have been maybe administrative things here and there? Because in Nigeria, there could be excuses of different administrative challenges and bureaucracies.
There are rules, and rules are rules. We are very good, as Nigerians, we are very good on paper. You know, you draft policies, but implementation is a problem. If we say that 7 days is 7 days, if you will not remit as at when due, why is it that you deduct as at when due? So it's a problem that can be solved if we, you see, when I said at the beginning of this presentation that I interface with these people every day, I told them, okay, I'll be on air today to talk about pension. I say, what do you want me to tell Nigeria? You say, we know that the money is not even much. Please beg them to release our money as at when due. Let me tell you, if you know where your next meal is going to come from by tomorrow, you will not need to worry. You see, I loved what happened during the lockdown. The lockdown gave people a picture of what retirement life is. You see people who drive their cars, who wear flashy suits, Segrato, you know, all these designers. So by the time when we entered that lockdown, they had almost nothing because they did not plan. They had almost nothing to feed their family, and they were crying for palliatives. But you see one Yasikira that did not even go to school. You see a level 14 saying, caller, go to Mamasika, tell her to give you 2,000 naira for me. Because these people are liquid. So man, know thyself. There is life beyond your normal 35 years of service. If Let me ask you directly. This is supposed to be you intervening, but let me throw it back to you. If you were not a journalist, what would you have been doing?
Great question. Maybe I would have been, growing up, there are so many things one planned to become at one point or the other. Maybe because at a point I would have been a pastor or something. Maybe.
Oh, I like that angle. Now,
maybe.
Are you familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Of course.
You know, the first stage is the psychological stage, where everybody just, if I'm coming from the village, for instance, and I have a friend who stays in Ajegunle, I don't mind where Ajegunle is. I'll say, okay, do you have a place that I can stay just to hide my head?
Exactly.
You know, that's the first thing. Just to hide my head, because I'm working, I have a place for shelter, I can clothe myself. Then and when things begin to change,
food is guaranteed.
Food is guaranteed. Let me now jump to the last stage, which is the stage of self-fulfillment. Not many people get to that stage of self-fulfillment. There's a reason why God created you. There's a reason, and if you don't fulfill that purpose, God will punish you. That is because if you go to the parable of the talent, God has given you diverse gifts, diverse talent. If you don't manifest, there are so many people tied to your gifts. There are so many people tied to your talent. If you said you should have been a pastor, let me give you a challenge now, sir. If you refuse to manifest, if it is the will of God, there's somebody that is outside in the pit there that is waiting. You know, God brought you to TVC for a purpose. He's preparing you at the backstage to bring you on stage, because God is always perfect. So there is no, if I see a church now that say, Mike, whatever, because I already know the face, God has already made you a brand. It becomes easy for me to believe when you say, you must follow God. So there's a reason for everything. So I'm also saying that follow your passion beyond the 35.
All right, that's a good one. Maybe I hope to be a pastor someday.
I look forward to watching in your church someday.
All right, thank you so much, Babatunde Raimi, for coming on the program. And I really appreciate what you're doing, especially for those, when it comes to the life of retirement. You've written a book on this, and I remember we've talked about these things so many times. And the ultimate call is for government to implement all of the things in the Bible or the Quran of a pension service, public service that you mentioned earlier on.
Very correct.
Thank you very much for coming.
It's my pleasure.
Right.